Good morning. This is Faith in Our Hometown, brought to you as a community service and sponsored by Mercy Hospital, Joplin. And now, here is your host, Father Jay Friedel.
Good morning and welcome back for another Sunday morning on Faith in Our Hometown. Thanks for joining us this morning. We're going to have a little conversation this morning. It's going to bend out a little bit into the realm of what I would call the philosophical, because we're talking a little bit about spirituality and sports. My guest this morning is going to be MaryAnn Mitz. MaryAnn is assistant professor of kinesiology at Missouri Southern State University, probably well known to the whole area, more as the former women's basketball coach at Missouri Southern. So we are going to continue to talk a little bit about spirituality and sport, which is one of those things that she didn't get a chance to talk too much about in her former realm, I think. But we're going to get a chance to talk about it this morning. So we are going to be right back after a Mercy Minute. We are going to be coming back to talk about spirituality and sports, so don't go away.
From childhood, whenever I was about 12, I would say, my weight really started climbing and it never really plateaued. I've tried low-carb diets, high-protein diets. I've tried calorie diets. It's very important to Dr. Lou that this is a team effort, so a primary care doctor following up with me regularly, and the dietitian was very helpful on providing recipes and helpful information to help me be successful in my journey. I'm very active and I play sports with the kids. We like to go play volleyball. I've done some warrior dashes.
So welcome back. As I said before the break, my guest this morning is MaryAnn Mitz, who's the assistant professor of kinesiology at Missouri Southern State University, our former women's basketball coach at the university. MaryAnn, a few years ago now, it's been a while that you shifted gears and got into this whole realm of teaching teachers now to coach rather than coaching yourself. What was part of the motivation behind you doing that?
Well, it's really interesting. I always have had a passion for sport and grew up in Kansas City playing a lot of sport and fortunate enough to coach it at a very young age, at the age of 25. And you know, Father, there just comes a time in your life where you want to do something different. And I felt like I did what I was supposed to do in the realm of being a coach. And you know, the sports world started to change a little bit. And when the sports world started to change a little bit, I noticed that I was starting to change a little bit, and maybe not in the way that I wanted to. And what I've learned is that sport and spirituality connect, and they connect in a way that revolves around becoming your best self or reaching your full potential. And when I saw the two conflicting, I just felt like maybe it was time for me to go do something else.
Well, you know, in terms of that conflict, there's probably not supposed to be a conflict. Okay, I wouldn't think in terms of having anyone reach their full potential. I wouldn't see that there's supposed to be a conflict. So where did you think the conflict was coming from?
Well, I think anytime you're involved with sport or spirituality, it's the body, mind, and spirit connection. And those three things are dynamic, they're always changing, and they're interrelated. You can't separate them, although I believe that at times society tries to do so. And so what I just found is that that holistic development started to change. And what started to take over, instead of developing the whole person, because I believe the basketball court was a platform to develop life skills. And when I started to spend more time developing life skills and society kept telling me, you just need to win and that's what everybody's going to judge you by, that's where the conflict started to become real for me.
So, I mean, fortunately you still are the winningest coach in Missouri Southern history, thanks be to God. But nonetheless,
I stayed here long enough.
You stayed here long enough. You can still hang on to that title. But with that in mind, you were winning. But obviously, it sounds to me like your passion was even to get to those other things. So now that you're teaching others how to coach, okay, What do we need to be teaching our kids?
Oh, wow. It's so interesting. The students at Missouri Southern are wonderful. They all come into our department, most of them, and we say, what do you want to do with your life? And they say, well, we want to coach. And we understand that, and that's what I said at that age as well, but coaching is teaching. And so we have to go back down to the teaching element to say, okay, well, you're going to teach from 7 o'clock in the morning to 3 o'clock in the afternoon, and then at 3 o'clock in the afternoon, then you're going to go coach. And so you're going to be teaching all day, but I think what is missing is the teaching component. We're losing the fact and we're separating the two when the two should really be held together. So the biggest fight I believe that I have in the classroom is teaching these young people how to dive into their teaching and then to have that transfer over into their athletic endeavors after school.
Okay, so we're teaching the teachers how to teach. And if they do well in the classroom, it'll bleed over to what's supposed to be happening on the court.
If you're a great teacher, you're going to be a great coach. Just because you're a great coach doesn't necessarily mean that you're a great teacher. It's interesting because society always focuses on that winning. There's a lot of great coaches out there and a lot of great programs that may not be doing the right things all the time or delving into the holistic approach, but they're winning. But then there's some that are. There are some coaches and programs that are doing it the right way and they're building from the foundation up. And I think that's just something that we have to talk to our young people about, is not getting caught up in what deems you as a success.
Now there's a life lesson. Okay.
And I think, again, society's telling them one thing, you have to win ball games, where we truly believe that it really falls into how are you developing young people, even those young people, those children, and then how are you developing them as people? And what happens is, as they develop as people, then that will transpire onto the court or to the field.
Yeah, it's interesting. Now, I'm not a big one for, saying, I try never to always ask. I'm giving away my trade secrets here, but I never always ask, did you win? But I try to ask questions about how did you play well, and did you have fun, and did you do those things? Now, I understand that you should never take the court unless you're going to attempt to win. I mean,
Sure.
That's not, because
Sure.
otherwise it wouldn't be fun for anybody if everybody just goes out there to just, do their thing. That's called practice. It's not playing a game. Okay, so I get that part. And I get that when you go out that you want to win. I understand that perfectly. I like to win. Who doesn't? Okay? But I think that some of the great lessons in life that I learned were sometimes when I didn't win. Or recognizing that there were 8 or 10 or 12, and especially on a basketball court, like all of them better than me, okay? So basketball was my least favorite sport. There it is, it's out in public, okay? But I mean, it was, nobody taught me even how to aim at a basket until I was 22 years old. And I was working on an adolescent psychiatric unit, and this kid who was in the hospital looks at me and says, "What's wrong with you? Don't you know how to shoot a basket?" And I went, "No, nobody ever taught me."
And in skill development, once children see some success, just in performing the activity, it doesn't mean that they have to make every shot or hit every goal, but what it means is that they're having fun. And I think you just mentioned 2 key components. You mentioned the word play, and you mentioned the word fun. And if we look back at how sport is developed, when we are children, when we're 3, 4, 5 years old, we learn through play. And as we learn through playing, whether that means just going out and playing hopscotch or putting a backpack on our back and putting a jump rope underneath the basement door and climbing up like you're climbing a mountain, or pretending that we're playing mass, you just play, and that's how you learn. And kids play because they're having fun. And then they get into the point where that play turns to games. And so whether it's hide and seek or whether it's Red Rover or whether it's a kickball game in the neighborhood, those are ways for kids to become in a more structured game-like setting where they start to take those same skills that they learned in play and apply it to more a teamwork, rules, applying to the rules, et cetera, et cetera. And then that's the first, I won the kickball game in the neighborhood, or I didn't. And what's the unfortunate thing is so many times young people are on their cell phones. They're playing internet games right now. And as you go and drive through neighborhoods, you don't see a lot of kids out playing. So their first real situation where they're involved in activity is organized sport. And that may not happen until they're 7 or 8 years old, and we've missed 2 key components. Because kids start to play sports because they want to have fun and because their friends are.
Because their friends are doing it, right?
So I think that's an important concept, is that maybe we're missing a few steps, and then again we go into that whole winning cycle. Is that I really believe that there's 3 components right now in youth sports that are real key themes. And I think the one, I'll start out with the Mac Daddy that everybody talks about, and that's parents. Whether those parents are
All right,
coaches.
now I'm going to say something real quick before you get into parents. I said, if I hear one thing that everybody complains about in watching sports, and especially kids sports, it's never the kids, it's never the games, it's the parents. So for those of you out there watching today, listen to what this woman is about ready to say.
So
I'm sure it's going to be profound.
Well, it's just my perspective. There's a role conflict, and it's because a lot of parents are asked to coach, and they're asked to coach their children. And I think when you get the parent and the coach, and those roles conflict unless you are really cognizant of keeping them separated. So we have that involvement. And then sometimes parents live through their children. Maybe they weren't the best athlete, but their child seems to be very athletic. And so now all of a sudden they're living through their child saying, oh, I never got to do that, but man, little Johnny sure is. So I think that's one component. The second thing is this whole win-loss thing. I think we're in 2 spectrums of winning. Either we're on one end where everybody gets an award. Everybody, if you participate, you get an award. A trophy. And I think that's great in the elementary schools, 1st, 2nd, 3rd grade. But I think we're missing a component, what you talked about earlier, because on the other side of the spectrum, we have to win championships or we didn't have a great season. And so that middle ground where we're suffering, we're losing, we're learning how to lose and not accept losing, but we're learning how to compete, and after we lose, we know how to jump back in there and practice harder and be more coachable and motivate ourselves more, and then we're starting to learn and we're starting to grow. And I really feel like our culture would change with all of the anxiety and the depression and all of that that's starting to hit our young people if we taught them how to fail in just a game. You lost. And how do you respond to that? Losing the game is only 20% of the deal. How you respond to losing the game is 80%. And then you can apply that to life.
And how do you teach that?
Well, I would write a book.
Okay.
And I would be a millionaire. I wish I had the answer.
Well, why don't you write the book, MaryAnn?
I wish I had the answer. Because again, there's that tension. And I really believe if people would buy into that and they would truly understand what sport can do for our youth and for our society, it starts from the bottom up. And so our youth coaches are those people that are so critical. The third thing is specialization. So many times, parents will ask me, oh, coach, my son loves basketball. He's in 5th grade. When should he stop playing football and soccer and baseball? You think 6th grade? Because we need a scholarship. And what happens is they're not really in tune with motor development. So if you play a lot of different sports, what tends to happen is you start to develop a whole skill set.
Okay, well, we're going to come right back after a quick break. Don't go away. We'll be right back.
You're watching Faith in Our Hometown on KSN TV, brought to you as a community service and sponsored by Mercy Hospital, Joplin.
Okay, so we're here with MaryAnn Mitz, who's the assistant professor of kinesiology at Missouri Southern State University. MaryAnn, it's good to have you back. I hope you all realize that we have someone here this morning who likes to talk every bit as much as I do, which I love, okay? And is passionate about what you're doing, and I love it. So we've been talking a little bit about, some of the things that we need to learn. When we talked about some of the three major problems so far, or problems, but challenges.
Challenges.
Okay, parents, what those parents' attitudes are.
Specialization.
And what was the middle one?
The wins and losses.
Oh, the wins and losses, how to win and lose, okay? So, so again, we talked about trying to figure out how to teach that, and